We've got a lot to get through this morning because for mobility, we wanted to touch on everything from forklifts to airplanes. As you can see, quite a wide range of topics. So I'd like to invite all of the speakers who are with us today to come up onto the stage. You can find your name on the back of the seat so you know where you're sitting. We have 16 people, half of which are tuned in remotely and the other half with us on the stage. So, gentlemen, if you would please find your seat. We have Jean-Claude Bailly for Gaussin, David Holderbach for Hyvia, Dominique Sadou for Stellantis, Damien Bourret for Forestia, Mr. Etienne for Ocabio, Stéphane Kaba for Alstom, and Jean-Baptiste Martin for Total Energy. I hope that everyone is with us. I know that some of you arrived just this morning, and we also have online all of our other speakers. Just waiting for everyone to find their seats here. And we can move on to our first sequence of the morning. And if everything is working as it should, we should have Franz Huber online from Linde Material Handling, part of Quillon, and also representing Fenwick brand. Is Franz Huber with us this morning? So Franz speaks both English and French. Which language would you like to speak in, Franz? So, Franz, we're going to be discussing with you forklift trucks, because this is the main use of mobility, and your company has a position on forklifts. Thank you very much for the kind introduction, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today. So, why hydrogen as an energy in logistics? The first thing is that forklifts have been electric powered for a long time, for years now, and all of the availabilities on the market are electric, which means that there's no debate with clients about whether forklift trucks should be electrical or not. Also, the battery replacement system for these vehicles has been standardized with our clients for decades now. What that means is that all you need to do is switch out the energy source, 24, 48 or more volts. And you don't need to rebuild the vehicle from scratch each time. And that's what history has given us. The batteries that we use are heavy and they're difficult to move around. And also, batteries do not function well in cold environments or hot environments, depending on the air conditioning system in a warehouse. And that is where hydrogen has a role to play. Changing out batteries and recharging them means downtime for the vehicles that are not productive while they're being recharged. Quick refueling using green hydrogen would reduce the downtime. So we've got the vehicles, yes, but what's important is the production and also the refueling stations, right? So that the system can develop. That is correct. We, as OEMs, have devised a number of solutions working alongside our clients. Pure use scenarios, working with some of our clients in the automotive industry. We also have the 24/7 applications and some other types of uses, and that is when hydrogen comes in. We are working to develop fuel cell technology for logistics on our end and also working on parallel projects. We will be replacing the Schattenbrook forklifts, 21 forklifts with fuel cell technology. We're going to implement an electrolyzer, a refueling station as well. And this will serve to show our clients an example of when hydrogen is implemented across the chain. It's proof of concept for our know-how and also will increase the knowledge that ourselves and our clients gain. Thank you, Franz. We also have some other people tuned in online who might want to jump in, including Bart Biblek from FCHGU.
You're from the FCHGU, and of course you're very interested by what's going on in the field of forklifts. If Bart, yes, I can see you.
Yes, I'm online. Thank you very much for the opportunity. No, so regarding forklifts, we believe it's indeed a very good market potential in Europe as well. I mean, we see it already happening in the US. I mean, they have already tens of thousands of forklifts over there deployed. I believe also in Europe we see potential. And for example, we have already two big projects in Europe running. I mean, we had high left demo. And so actually it's in the Carrefour near Paris, where we have I think more than 100 of forklifts on hydrogen. And actually the feedback also from the drivers, they really like this technology. Also, when I talk to the chiefs or the bosses of those people, they are quite happy as well with the performance, because also it reduces the accidents. Because with other technology, they sometimes had, especially with batteries, when they do the exchange, there's a lot of accidents that happened after. I mean, people were then at home for a month or 2 months because they had to recover of the accident and so on. So one of these things that say, okay, less accidents happen. I hope it stays like that, of course. And another one was also that basically the refueling is very quick, and in principle it goes very smooth overall, and there is no impact on losing time on the logistics or whatever. So in principle, very positive feedback. Also in Paris, what happened as well for us was the first time that we built a hydrogen refueling station inside the facility. And I think we have seen a few other examples, like in Colruyt in Belgium, where it's outside of the facility. So it was the first time we built it inside. And it worked well, very fine. I mean, they got the permission to do that. The refueling is happening very well there. So, I mean, only positive feedback. I think what is important for Europe is that we need to compare it with the US. There's a little change. And in the US, basically, when we see the fleets of forklifts, it's always very huge. It's big ones. I mean, if you take the Walmarts, the Amazons, and so on, they talk of hundreds. And of course, there the business case, the TCO is easier to make once to build a hydrogen refueling station, because, okay, if you can refuel, I mean, I don't know, 500 of these forklifts, of course, you have economy of scale. So in Europe, we see that there is a lot of smaller ones, but there are possibilities.
Okay, I know that you have a lot of comments about everything we're going to mention in this round table, but we have to carry on. And we have also online Stefan Herbst from Toyota Motor Europe. He's going to discuss also a lot of topics. And just one quick word, Stefan, if you're online with us, because Toyota is producing hydrogen-powered forklifts in Japan. Stefan, are you here? Yes.
Good morning, Laurent and everyone. Yes, indeed, we developed and we are developing with Toyota Industries, the sister company of Toyota Motor Corporation, also hydrogen forklifts in Japan. And these forklifts operate already in our production site as part of the decarbonization strategy to decarbonize not only the vehicles, but also our production operations. And we offer hydrogen forklifts also in the US and in Europe, but in a cooperation with Plug Power. And as Bart said, the critical point is if someone wants to test 2 or 3 or 4 forklifts, it's very difficult to make a business case because we need obviously the station. So it only makes sense as of probably 40, 50 forklift, and therefore we need larger operations today. But forklift, as Bart also mentioned, in the US already a couple of thousands are utilized, and there's a big potential for hydrogen forklift.
Thank you, Stefan.
So, Stefan.
Are you there, Stefan Herbst from Toyota? Of course, we're going to mention the new Toyota Mirai. We can also see it outside the hotel. Stefan, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
So, Stefan, Toyota has been a pioneer with the Mirai. So, are you confident in the way that passenger cars have a future with hydrogen power?
I think it is important to understand the role of the passenger cars in the development of fuel cell vehicles. And let me stress that the car actually plays 4 roles. First of all, when we introduced Mirai in 2014 in Japan, 2015 in Europe and US, there were only a few number of hydrogen stations. So it was essential to bring a car to the market that the station, and you can see here one, are developing in terms of scale, but also in terms of technological development. It was the first time that we actually could test and see and further develop together with the station providers, the station and the communication with the car. The second is to make hydrogen tangible, that consumer, normal people can see and experience hydrogen technology. And therefore, we deployed Mirai in Europe, taxi fleets in Paris with Hype, in Clever Shuttle in Germany, or with Green Tomatoes in the UK, just to bring a few examples. So very important that the customer can really feel and see and experience hydrogen. The next element is scale. The first generation, we sold more than 10,000 vehicles worldwide. Now, with the second generation and stack production, we ramped this up to 30,000. And scale is important to get down the cost. That is the key factor in order to make a success of this technology in future. And the car market obviously is very big and there's big potential as well. So scale, the car market will be still important for scale. The fourth element is all other devices, buses, vans, trucks benefit actually from the development that happened with the stack from the passenger car. Because in our case, we use the same stack of the Mirai to power vans, to power buses, or we utilize 2 stacks to power trucks. So in that sense, the car is an essential enabler for future scale up, and also the diversification of hydrogen and to build up hydrogen economies.
Okay, thank you, Stefan, for this first statement on automotive industry. I would like to have a reaction from Bart Biebeck from the FEH GU, because Bart, if you are online with us,
yes.
Of course, you believe also there is a future for cars powered by hydrogen, not only battery electric.
Exactly, no, absolutely. And this is basically one of the comments I would like to make is that H2ME is one of our projects. We are trying to roll out 1,400 vehicles across Europe with 50 hydrogen refueling stations that we are coordinately trying to build. One of the learnings that we have is that, of course, we see that for high intensive use operations, hydrogen vehicles are really necessary. And I think we heard also Stellantis, we heard Renault as well announcing like small white vans, but also we see high performance vehicles need hydrogen. And one of my worries that I have at the moment is that we see in a lot of governments across Europe that they believe hydrogen should not be used for vehicles, and that the building of hydrogen refueling stations for vehicles are kind of less priority. And it worries me a lot. And I think that I disagree with that, first of all. I think we need to build hydrogen refueling stations for cars, especially for these high intensive and high performance vehicles. It will be necessary. We cannot do without it. I don't believe we can do everything with battery only. So I believe we need to have a more pragmatic approach, and let's try to build together hydrogen refueling stations for example, trucks and cars at the same time.
Thank you, Bart, for this comment. From Germany, we have online also Götz Schneider, if you can hear us. Götz is working for the VDA, which is the association gathering all the key players in the automotive industry in Germany. Götz, are you with us?
Yes, can you
hear me? And of course, we'd like to have some inputs from you on what's going on in Germany with hydrogen.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much for giving me the chance to take part in this very interesting discussion and to give you some insight from a German perspective and from an automotive industry view. Maybe first of all, a very few words about the VDA, the German Automotive Association. We represent the car companies, including trucks and suppliers, and therefore more than 800,000 employees actually. Bottom line, we invest the next 5 years 150 billion euros in new technologies, including digitization, of course, but also new driving technologies such as e-mobility and, of course, hydrogen as well. Before I come back to what was mentioned earlier regarding the struggle between battery electric and fuel cell electric vehicles, first, a general German perspective. Theoretically, we see, and the German government as well, the potential of hydrogen is almost endless, actually. The great challenge regarding our climate goals will be, for sure, to use green hydrogen in an import strategy. So there was just a report last week from the German government where that was highlighted very much, that we will not be able to produce all that or that amount of hydrogen that we need for all the different industry sectors, including the automotive sector. Therefore, we need a robust and reliable import strategy for green hydrogen. At this point, actually, Germany is quite on a good track so far, because especially from an automotive point of view, all available technologies are required to achieve the climate goals, especially in the traffic sector. And that also includes hydrogen to cope with the transformation in the field of mobility. Because after all, the CO2 reduction targets can for sure also only be achieved through a balanced mix, the technology openness, as we call it here. That includes a quick ramp up of electromobility, and that especially includes the ramp up of fuel cell electric vehicles with hydrogen. That especially includes the e-fuel strategy, because especially in Germany, when we discuss about the need, what we have when you see the ramp up of electromobility, it also goes hand in hand with a strategy for the existing fleet and the heavy duty vehicles, because there it's not as easy as to get a quick ramp up of battery electric driven vehicles. There especially you also need a good e-fuel strategy based on green hydrogen as well. Based on that, the German government wants to promote a rapid ramp up of hydrogen economy in general, and especially promotes the use of hydrogen in transport by setting up a refueling infrastructure. What we, from an association's point of view, always try to emphasize, to mention, is that it always goes hand in hand with the EU level. As you know, we have the Fit for 55 package with very ambitious and strong goals for the different industry sectors, including the automotive sector. And we should never make the mistake to focus on a national policy path, but to see what is proposed on an EU level regarding the fleet regulation and especially the Alternative Fuels Infrastructure Directive. Because here you also have very good, ambitious goals regarding the expansion targets for refueling infrastructure of hydrogen.
Thank you, Götz,
that's so far, yeah.
All this Kim said is very interesting. Retour sur le plateau, parce qu'en fait, on a Jean-Baptiste Martin.
Let's come back to the stage with Jean-Baptiste Martin. This may seem surprising to some of you, but Total is present in Germany and is working on these.
You're absolutely right. The hydrogen mobility adventure began in the year 2000 with Total Energy in Germany, remember? We supported BMW, the very first series of 7, the very first V12 engines that were hydrogen powered, and then we continued to develop our own stations. And then we pulled our efforts with other partners. The H2 Mobility JV was created in 2015, and the goal was to resolve the chicken and the egg problem. We developed a network, a nationwide network for light vehicles. And now there are 93 different stations across the country, which is good. So 25% of the total energy network. So 850 vehicles are part of our fleet. A part of our fleet, yes, of course, there's always room for improvement. The upside is that you never have to wait in line too long. It's important not having to wait in line too long, so we need to grow. And the other speakers will confirm that it's important to grow these types of uses, and we need a captive fleet to strengthen volumes and optimize savings from this type of infrastructure. And in the future, all new JV developments will be multimodal. We have the two French manufacturers. David Volderbach, you lead Havia, a joint venture between Renault and Plug Power, the American fuel cell maker. It's such a pleasure to welcome you here in person. We already met online. Tell us more about the Havia strategy. Havia? Is it Evia or Havia? Well, if we're all French, Evia, but internationally, we pronounce it Havia. So Havia brings together two experts, the Renault Group, which is the leading manufacturer of utility vehicles, and Plug Power, that everybody knows. They are a major fuel cell maker. So over 40,000 fuel cells are currently in use today. You know, it's a bit like an arranged marriage. Like an arranged marriage or an inter-ethnic marriage, and we solve low carbon problems, and we're able to provide services to the entire ecosystem. So our goal is to support our customers, meet their mobility needs, and make sure they don't have to deal with the hassle of learning this entire new ecosystem. So what we provide is an a la carte menu. We are able to adapt to their specific needs. We will look at the entire Havia range of vehicles. So you have utility vehicles, heavy ones, not so heavy ones, and also electrolyzers. Absolutely. We focus on heavy-duty mobility. Clearly, that's where the needs are at this point. That's where hydrogen can really make a difference in the future. In terms of depolluting diesel engines, internal combustion engines are going to become very expensive. So this is where hydrogen comes in. So we have a range of vehicles, including chassis cam, city bus, and also the van. So we make the fuel cells in Flins. Let's look at the next slide. The entire ecosystem is located in France. You're absolutely right. So both the station and the fuel cell will be assembled in Flins, in our gigafactory. This is a project by Renault Group, and they have retrofitted an entire plant, and we're part of this project. And our goal is to achieve 30% market share for hydrogen-powered utility vehicles in Europe by 2030. So we'll look at Stellantis' objectives on this note. So Faurecia is a partner with this project? Yes, absolutely. Hello. First of all, I'm delighted to be with you here. It's nice to be here in person. It's so nice. Everybody's happy to be here today. So we have an expertise center in Bavance. Some of you will get to visit it this week. And also we have already built our hydrogen storage installation plant in Longeois. Before handing over, I'd like to discuss logistics. This is something you may not know, but Faurecia is already a major supplier of hydrogen-empowered storage solutions for forklift trucks. So we have a JV in China called CLD. It's interesting to mention that. So getting back to automotive, and Highway in particular, we are very proud to be part of this project to develop and produce hydrogen storage solutions for the very first hydrogen-powered vehicles that will soon come out on the market. So all our teams are all hands on deck to support the launch. And as we said before, a critical success factor for the hydrogen industry, in the broad sense of the word, is economic efficiency. So when you are a large OEM and you have industrial expertise, you can develop an efficient cost structure. So you need to protect the climate, but also you need to work profitably. This is key. And this is part and parcel of our expertise as a Tier 1 OEM. Yes, thank you very much. Julien Etienne, you represent EKPO. Henry Klinger, Plastic Omnium. You work on fuel cells, but let me say, can we talk about tanks? The head of engineering at Renault, Jean-Yves Lebord, and I know him really well, and he worked here, actually, and he said that Plastic Omnium could actually become a partner. So what about that? Hello, everyone. Yes, I represent the entire hydrogen chain via EKPO. It's a JV between Eric Klinger and Plastic Omnium. We're based in Germany. So via Plastic Omnium, which is active on fuel cell systems as well as storage systems. So, in terms of what you've read in the press, I believe that this represents the growing maturity of this technology. Needless to say, there are partnership agreements in place, and the fact that there are several industry players, several Tier 1. Well, it's a bit like having the French soccer team winning the game, right? Winning the finals. Well, let's not be overly confident, obviously. But what I'm saying is that we find ourselves in a standardized situation with this type of technology. So we have competition from a sales point of view, but also from the standpoint of technology. And this will generate impetus, and this will drive better technological competitiveness. So I look forward to competing with our peers, whether Faurecia or others. And this means that the technology is really becoming mature. So we're getting ready for the ramp up in volumes in the next few years, particularly when it comes to passenger cars. Thank you very much. And the other automotive manufacturer, well, you're not technically French, Stellantis. You're a global player, so you have German DNA. Yes, absolutely. Opel, so 14 different brands are part of your group. You're the head of innovation for engines. Dominique Sadoul, there's a large-scale demonstrator just outside with all of the components that will be available for Citroën, Peugeot, and Opel vehicles very soon, right? Good morning, everyone, says Dominique Sadoul. In line with our commitment 2 years ago, by the end of 2021, throughout our light utility vehicle range, we'll use carbon-free batteries. A hydrogen vehicle is first and foremost an electric vehicle. So having in our portfolio the entire retrofitting, the entire conversion process from electric to hydrogen is a good thing. It's the same thing as for forklift trucks. So mid-2018, we started a project to adapt our light utility or mid-range light utility vehicles, the Citroën Jumpy model or the Opel Vivaro model. So these are the trade names. So we started this project. Why did we do that? Well, because the electric versions of the model, even though we believe we will be able to cover 40% of customer needs in the near future, all of the customers that that travel less than 300 kilometers a day. Well, we believe that Stellantis should provide carbon-free solutions to all customer needs, 100%, and not just 40%. So hydrogen is clearly one of the technologies that will help us cover these additional uses. So this is an additional technology. We're not trying to force people to buy hydrogen-powered battery electric vehicles. No, what we offer is products that really meet customer needs, that are truly useful, and that truly represent value for our customers. So we started developing this vehicle, and initially there were three main drivers we kept in mind. First of all, as I said before, we're really customer-centric. We focus on customer needs. So what do we do? Since we're discussing light utility vehicles, we decided to not compromise, whether in terms of the cargo space available or the loading capacity, because these are the two main features of this type of utility vehicle. Of course, I'm talking hydrogen-powered vehicles. So by definition, these are carbon-free, zero-emission electric vehicles that have a longer range than battery-powered vehicles, and also you are able to fill up the tank in less than 3 minutes. And that's good. This means a longer range, and you can better amortize the vehicle. You recoup your costs faster. So there's a mock-up outside. So we decided to show you not the vehicle because you can't see a thing once the product is finished, but we showed you a mock-up, and the vehicles are currently being tested. This is the last round of reliability testing before they're available on the market. In the second driver, we decided to tackle the cost-cutting efforts. This is not a mainstream automotive technology. We just talked about the tanks earlier. So we decided to tackle the cost-cutting aspect in 4 different ways. Number one, we chose a mid-power architecture. What do I mean by that? We use hydrogen, but we also include a small battery, a plug-in vehicle battery to combine the best of both worlds in a single vehicle. So we use hydrogen as a source of energy to maximize mileage, and then we use the battery for when you need to speed up, when you need to go up an incline, for example. And this is how we were able to limit the power of the fuel cell, and therefore the price of the vehicle. We also reused carryover as much as possible, and we used and reused Stellantis's industrial assets as much as possible so as to reduce the initial investment requirements. So it's basically a carryover from the electric version, and we also used a battery that had been developed for our plug-in vehicles, our light vehicles, obviously. Next, from the get-go, we set up 3 partnership agreements with 2 tier 1 providers, Symbio for fuel cells and also Faurecia for the storage solutions. So we're working as part of these partnership agreements, and together we develop the product. Lastly, when it comes to the industrial side of things, in order to avoid heavy-duty investments, the kind of investments that are necessary for mass production, because we're dealing with growing markets, okay? So the volumes aren't huge yet, but they're bound to grow. So we decided to go for a transformation process in a specific workshop. So the vehicle is made and then transferred to Opel and turned into a hydrogen-powered vehicle. It's converted. Let me say a few last words regarding the ecosystem. From the get-go, we decided it would be global, so we talked to energy players so we could put together a combined offer, vehicle plus fuel. Faurecia already talked about tanks earlier, so let's hear from Philippe Rosier about Symbio. Symbio is busy building their plant. They're ready to scale. So this is an iconic contract, isn't it? Good morning, everyone. Yes, it's an iconic contract, and it's also a major source of happiness for us because we worked so hard over the past 3 years, and this is the combination of our efforts. We worked together with Stellantis on these vehicles, and this is a ramp-up in hydrogen that we're seeing. And there are three main features when it comes to this vehicle. First of all, as you well know, together with Michelin and Faurecia, Symbio decided to transform its business model to actually become an OEM. And this vehicle is the very first one that we have developed as part of an automotive R&D program with all of the usual qualifications. And this is the trademark of our expertise. And except for the vehicles provided by Hyundai or Toyota integrated players, this is the very first vehicle that has been developed as part of a partnership agreement that is hydrogen powered. Also, we're expanding our range. Outside, you will see the Kangoo light utility vehicles that we developed together with Renault Group based on range extenders. So the fuel cell extends the range of the electric battery, but we're using smaller fuel cells. As Dominique explained, we are able to use a 40 kilowatt cell, so that's one size up. And in the showroom, you will see our very first version fuel cells of 150 kilowatt designed for HGVs, so medium-sized heavy goods vehicles. And in the future, twice that, so 300 kilowatt for large-sized heavy goods vehicles. So clearly, we're fast-tracking our work on the equipment, on the product, and also on the scale-up. We used to produce 200, 300 systems a year, and since the beginning of the year, we started a plant so we could get ready for the launch with Stellantis, so 3,000 systems a year. In addition to that, in parallel, south of Lyon, we are building a gigafactory. That's what they're called these days. So a system with 50,000. We're hoping to churn out 50,000 systems a year as early as the end of 2023. Getting back to you, Dominique said, so the vehicles are on their way, and we'll see what they contain. Will this technology be available? Will spread to other types of vehicles, other categories? Before this vehicle is even launched, we've decided on the next steps. We have already initiated a project designed to increase our production capacity beyond 2023 so we can meet and match demand, assuming infrastructure keeps up as well. And we sure hope so. In addition, needless to say, we're hoping to expand this technology to the whole Stellantis portfolio. So we will expand to all of these Stellantis brands. Well, maybe not all 14 of them, because not every brand uses light commercial vehicles. Well, Maserati doesn't have a utility vehicle, does it? No, I'm referring to Fiat and Ram. These are important brands in terms of light utility vehicles and also heavy goods vehicles. So we're looking at all brands, except for maybe Maserati. And of course, we're not going to stop here. We started with Europe, but we're hoping to move into the North American market as well. And we're also going to expand our range. This is step one. Light utility vehicles is step one. And then we want to go up a notch with higher sized, with bigger vehicles, including HGVs. HGVs over there, they're called trucks here in Europe, and maybe even pickup trucks. David Holderback, can you tell us more about Stellantis' plan for expansion? Is Renault Group planning to do the same thing? Well, just like Stellantis, we're investigating other opportunities. But we first need to make sure the launch is successful. That's our current priority, and I'm delighted to see there's so much potential. Symbio is making the fuel cells, and the tanks are being developed. And as I said before, cost cutting is key, and that's something we all need to work on together. more demand, more supply. It's all good for the sector. I have a question for Stefan Herbst.
Will be a light commercial vehicle in Toyota's portfolio in the next years?
Well, we already have a light commercial vehicle in our portfolio, not in Europe, but in Japan. So we just finalized the testing with the Group 711. So again, we utilize the stack of the Mirai for that car. And we also have corporations, for example, in China. So as I said before, we are expanding, as was said before, the lineup also towards the commercial vehicles, and we will continue to do so.
Merci pour ce commentaire. On va enchaîner.
Continuez sur cette lancée. Next sequence, please. Thank you for this comment. Very good. Let's talk about buses and trucks, or HGVs, heavy goods vehicles. Well, many of our panel members are involved in this field. Let's start with Bart Bibak.
So the FAGU helped to deploy fleets of buses, hydrogen buses in Europe. Are you satisfied of the result today?
I'm amazingly satisfied. We have been working for more than 10 years on hydrogen buses, and by doing that, we were able to reduce the cost of a hydrogen bus from 1.8 million euro to now I would say that hydrogen buses are basically competitive with other zero emission technology buses. I mean, in the JIVE and the JIVE 2 projects, we have now ordered, I mean, all the buses are ordered, more than 300 buses. And we have now more than 5 OEMs engaged. So there's a kind of competition already, and that also, of course, helps to drive down the prices of the buses. I mean, in the JIVE, we see that now already around 50 buses are being delivered, and we see the coming months more and more buses being really delivered. But it's good. At the same time, also, all that work that we did on buses also triggered other OEMs now to consider hydrogen offer for their buses. I mean, I learned about more than 5 additional OEMs will start to work on that. So really, we created the kind of market for hydrogen buses. Also, we have to say that we were really successful because we had awarded the best bus of the world in Busworld back in 2019, and that was actually one of the buses which is deployed in France in Pau. For us, the next big step now, because somehow we see city buses as a mission accomplished, and the next step now is for us coaches. Coaches, there is clearly a bigger challenge there. We have less space because we need to have storage for the customers or for the clients on the buses for their luggage and so on. So it's a bit more a challenge, but we will get there. I mean, we just started with the first project now. But overall, very, very satisfied with what we have achieved on a European level together with all the partners, because I really have to say we can only initiate it, but I really am so grateful for everybody who helped to realize this goal.
Très bien. Alors, on est tellement...
We have so many panel members in this plenary session. I have asked Nicolas Pocard from Ballard to stand next to me because we don't have enough seats on this stage. So it's an important fuel cell player, and in the area of hydrogen-based, hydrogen-powered buses, you have a lot of experience. Ballard is a Canadian company, and you're touring Europe. Thank you so much for stopping by and talk to us about what you do, your ambitions, your experience. Please stand next to me and talk into the microphone. Could you say a few words about, well, what's your feedback? Basically, you have the largest hydrogen-powered bus fleet, don't you? Thank you very much for your invitation. It's a pleasure to be here in Belfort. I originally come from the Vosges region. Vosges, Canada, same diff, right? Same forest, same weather. So Ballard started working with fuel cells 40 years ago, and the first buses hit the road at the end of 1990s, and then we electrified vehicles, but there were no batteries, there were no hybrid vehicles. But where do things stand today? Clearly, there are 3,000 hydrogen-powered buses working around the world, 300 maybe, in European cities. So what's our feedback? If we look at the accumulated mileage from buses and trucks, Ballard has over 100 million kilometers. That's the mileage from hydrogen-powered vehicles, whether buses working in really hot areas, California, for example, with average temperature, daytime temperature 40 degrees C. So we have proven that fuel cells work on buses, and the availability rate of these buses is higher than natural gas-powered buses in the US and is similar to the availability rate of diesel-powered buses. And the fuel cell itself has over 97% availability, and this includes preventative maintenance. So fuel cells work irrespective of the weather. They are suitable for urban transport, and more we're seeing a growing number of European bus manufacturers that are starting to include hydrogen in their electric mobility offering, because the hydrogen option means it's a range extender. You can operate the bus longer in more difficult circumstances, all the way from 4 a.m. until 10 p.m., and you just need to go back to the terminal once to fill up the tank. Thank you very much. We have two other fuel cell manufacturers. What about the EKPO gentleman, Julien Etienne? Well, the bus and coach markets are slightly different from each other. So when it comes to the bus market, whether you're talking hydrogen-powered buses in France, or rather in China, because that's where we have our critical mass and where we have the most impetus. And then in Europe, the US, and North America, we're seeing a massive rollout, and our offering is expanding. We're working with major OEMs such as Nivobus, and they're starting a new range. So the bus industry is very important to us as a fuel cell maker, in the same way that logistics is important to us. This is an industry where we are ramping up volumes, and we are selling products that are highly suitable as range extenders or as full power systems for coaches. So we use the bus as a stepping stone for rolling out fuel cells to other areas as well. So it's important business for us. Mr. Philippe Rosier, you're a French manufacturer, aren't you? Yes, we work with the Safran Group. I've been working with them for 4 or 5 years. We've worked on developing a bus that is now operating on French roads. We have about 20 or so such buses circulating on French roads. And Safran just started increasing capacity, and we started with a first prototype so we could test out the system in a very different kind of environment. The kind of environment you find in Moscow. Now, KAMAZ does have a footprint in Russia. So this is a segment where we are highly represented, and we also are looking to fast-track our efforts. What about you, for Russia? You have tanks that are ready to be used on buses. Philippe said it all, because he and I addressed this segment together, and we do it often, so I have nothing to add. Okay, let's hear from Stephen Herbst from Toyota. Stephen.
Mention your partnership with Caetano, which is a brand in Portugal, to make in common H2 buses.
Yeah, thank you, Laurent. I think what is the next big ecosystem is we need to decarbonize faster all vehicles in a city. And obviously buses run a lot in city centers, van run, taxi fleets. So all these vehicles we will see moving to zero emission and hydrogen. And that is a reason why now 2 years ago we partnered with Caetano Bus to develop a bus, a hydrogen bus, which has today runs at 350 bar, 400 kilometer driving range. And this is using one stack of the Mirai. The bus is now also got Toyota logo, so it's on sale under brand of Toyota. You will not be able to order it at a Toyota retailer. That goes via Caetano. But that shows the direction we are taking and the expansion of products with, again, the Mirai stack we are utilizing. And this bus, so within 2 years, we have developed it together with Caetano Bus, and the bus is competitive already. He won a number of tenders of cities in Europe.
Thank you, Stéphane. Un petit mot rapide de Julien Etienne.
Très rapidement, je mets ma casquette plastique omnium.
Thank you. So putting my plastic omnium hat back on here. 3 years ago at the Innovation Trade Fair in Paris, well, back then I mentioned how important it was for suppliers and European players to target international expansion. And buses, because of their relatively standardized nature, are a good vector for this kind of approach. Plastic Omnium is working with OEMs in Europe on storage systems, and that means that we can use the same products to sell systems that are made in Europe and sell them in Asia, in China, or in the broader Asia region. Okay, let's get back to Brussels with Bart Bieberk from the Fuel Cell Hydrogen Joint.
GU, and this is a very high potential market for the future.
Yes, correct. I mean, we did the study, and the study results was quite clear. Hydrogen for trucks has a good TCO, and a good potential. I mean, we estimate that at the end, I mean, maybe 70% of the truck market could be even propelled by hydrogen, and other 30% for battery. So it's not about again, the fight is battery or hydrogen. I believe that's complementary, but we see, of course, a bigger share of hydrogen in the heavy-duty sector, like the trucks. I mean, ourselves, we have two big projects. One project is H2O, where we have two configurations, rigid trucks and also tractor trucks. We work with 15 of them this year and next year in the field, really to try and to test. And then we also have Revive. This is a refuse trucks. I have to say, also here we work with 15, and we have already some of them already in Breda, basically operating, and the feedback is really, really positive. I mean, even the operators again and the people who are walking behind those trucks are very, very satisfied with this solution. So totally we work with 30 trucks. One of the outcome that we had also in the study was actually last year in November, the OEMs, the industry has committed to build 100,000 hydrogen trucks by 2030 and to build 1,500 hydrogen refueling stations. That was because the study showed such a good result. That was then automatically followed by a commitment of the industry, which of course we welcome very much. And also in addition, now the Fit for 55, which was announced by our commissioner in July this year, also say now that every 150 kilometer along the 10T corridors, we need to install a hydrogen refueling station by 2025. And now here I really would like to make a call to all the OEMs and maybe especially also the builders of the hydrogen refueling stations and the operators in the different, let's say, refueling stations, is to make sure that if we build those hydrogen refueling stations for the trucks, that we also make sure that we have a nozzle for the cars. For the reasons I explained before, we need also hydrogen for cars for a certain segment in the car sector. So we need to do both, because the European regulation will only require it for trucks. But I really here make a call that with a few, with the small money that we will additionally invest, maybe 20, 30,000 euro, we can also put a nozzle for cars. And that would be my main message here. And then the other one is that we need to speed up. I mean, I see that in other parts of the world, like Korea, but also China last week, they announced 1,000 hydrogen trucks already. So we need to speed up, otherwise Europe might lose this market. And I'm very serious here. That's my main message. And for next year, we will make a call topic to put a fleet of hydrogen trucks on the market. And you will hear about that much more by the end of the year. Thank you.
Thank you, Bart. On reste au Benelux.
Thank you very much. Staying in Benelux with Chris Lefrère next, representing the Waterstoffnet network. He's going to tell us about high trucks. Chris, can you hear us? We can do this in French or in English, whatever you want. We can do a mixture of both. So Waterstofnet is a non-profit organization based in the north of Belgium. And we work with 100 or so companies working on hydrogen. And all sorts of companies in the steel industry, in hydrogen transport, hydrogen production, transformation. My Hydrux project that I head up is an initiative that aims to bring together 50 or so companies. At least that's how many we have at the moment. Our goal is to ramp up decarbonation of trucks. Decarbonization of trucks. So we are working around the water network, the canal network in the north of Europe. And what we want to do is create an ecosystem of 1,000 trucks with 20 to 25 refueling stations and a 40-ton daily production capacity for clean hydrogen, so blue or green, with a 75 megawatt capacity of clean energy production. The aim of this project is to accelerate the transition of the transport industry. Currently, the state of the art could be described as research level, but we want to turn it into a viable solution that's business viable and operationally viable. We have a couple of slides that you wanted to put up on screen, I believe, Chris. Do you have those? If you can share your screen, you can put them up. Otherwise, we can just keep talking about the program. I don't think I can screen share, so we'll just talk about it. First of all, it's important to note that we have 6.2 million lorries in Europe, almost 100% of which are diesel engine lorries. We talk about 2025, 2030, Fit for 55, but the challenge is huge. Decarbonization of the 6.2 million lorries by 2030 or 2040 is a huge undertaking. And they account for 5.6% of carbon emissions in Europe today. So lorries are a significant factor in the decarbonization of Europe. We also know that the number of lorries increases with GDP. So if economies are growing 3% per annum, then the number of lorries is going to be increasing at twice the speed. So if we do nothing by 2025, we're going to have a huge issue. The problem for the lorry operators today is that there's no viable offering out there. We need hydrogen. We need hydrogen lorries. Because for HGVs that travel over long distances, it makes sense to use hydrogen. But there's no offering out there. There's nothing being sold. You don't have the refueling stations. At least we don't have a dense network. And in many cases, there are no refueling stations in most countries in Europe. And also the capacity for production of clean hydrogen is very low at the moment in Europe. That means that there's a huge amount of work to be done across the value chain. Increasing volume and providing a solution that is financially and operationally viable. And this is something that some of the other speakers mentioned, Mr. Sadoul, for example. We need to be customer focused, and that is what we're doing as part of our project. We're working with 40 or so transport operators, lorry operators. We have 4 OEMs, 4 refueling station operators, and 3 hydrogen producers. What we've seen is that if we try to push this value chain towards something that's viable, for buyers, then we need to have all of these 4 levels working together, and all of these 4 levels need to be working hand in hand if we are to indeed implement the transition. Currently, the largest challenge for transport operators is the TCO gap. That is the difference between the capex spend and the operational expenses. If you don't mind just jumping in, I'd like to hear from David on this, because in your Renault portfolio, you have an integrator company, I believe. So, hydrogen lorries from Renault? Now, I'm from Avia, so I'm maybe not in the best position to tell you about this. But PBI is working on a 26-ton lorry at the moment. They already sell an electric version of it, and they're working with us and put power to set up a hydrogen version, which should be on sale soon. Okay, coming back to Chris Lefrère, if he's still online with us. Okay, so things are taking shape. These lorries are hitting the market. There are prototypes, there are demos, but we don't yet have a truly viable business model like we'd have for diesel. If you want to put a hydrogen lorry on the road today, first of all, there's a huge shortfall in the number of recharging stations, refueling stations. And also the lorries that are available are prohibitively expensive if you compare the price to a diesel lorry. Okay, the logistics operators might be called on to make an effort, but currently they don't even have enough drivers, which means that the cost of labor, which is about 35% of overall cost for the transporter, is increasing on its own. And we also have the supply chain issues related to the lorries themselves. There simply aren't enough suppliers for the parts for the lorries. So suffice to say, this is a sector that is a bit of a shark tank. It's all about price. And their margin for investing in a technological transition is very slight indeed. So we need to help them, we need to support them with subsidies and with state aid to help kick off the transition. Thank you very much for that, Mr. Lefrère. Let's move on to more lorries with Forestier. Now, we've got a beautiful Hyundai lorry. This is in Switzerland, your partners to this project. We have the vehicles, but also the infrastructure. Absolutely, we've already said that lorries are one of the fields in which hydrogen is the most meaningful, which means that we are very happy with Forestier to be working with the Hyundai lorries. Now, there aren't very many, but there are more being rolled out in Switzerland. This is part of the creation of an entire ecosystem. We worked with Bertrand Picard, who told us that the entire hen house got involved with solving the hen or the egg which came first dilemma. And more specifically for Forestier, what this means is that we're working with players in HGV mobility around Europe. We've got some partnerships that we can't announce at this point, but that we will be announcing soon. Sorry, carry on. That was just a noise from Zoom. So we're working with some of the partners that we mentioned, working on gases compressed hydrogen, and then for HGVs, we are working through partnerships on liquid hydrogen solutions that will be stored at very low temperatures. And that doubles the energy density of the fuel. That's what Mercedes is going with, yes. It's certainly what they're saying at the moment. And for Faistia, having a presence on both these technologies shows our commitment to hydrogen as a whole, and also means that we can offer a full range of solutions to our clients. Thank you. Coming back to Stefan Hertz from Toyota. Toyota also has presence in the lorry space.
You start to produce your first H2 trucks, mainly in the US and in Japan also?
Yeah, but not to forget China. China is moving very fast. So already there we have trucks with Toyota technology on the road of partners. In the US, as you mentioned, we are developing Canberra's hydrogen trucks, Class 8, which currently operate in the harbor of LA. And very important is also the partnership we have with fuel companies, because we need to develop the infrastructure also for truck refueling. And in Japan, with our sister company, Hino, actually is developing hydrogen trucks for both for the US and for Japan. And for Japan, the truck will be on test next year. So truck segment is also very important. But just let me stress what Bart said before, and let me put my hat on of Hydrogen Council. There we counted and we see that in the next years, by 2030, there will be 30 new passenger cars, fuel cell vehicles on the road, and 70 commercial fuel cell vehicles. So again, this shows we need, when we think about the infrastructure, we need to build up the infrastructure for buses, for trucks, but having in mind also the passenger car market for scaling. Thank you.
Thank you, Stéphane. Retour à mon voisin Nicolas Poker de Ballard.
Let's come back to Nicolas Poker. Now, I'm sorry that we've run out of chairs for you. It just goes to show, if we're running out of chairs, that there are so many people excited about hydrogen. Now, your company is working on HGV mobility. We've got a few slides that we should be able to bring up on the screen in just a minute. You have developed a new fuel cell that can be used for cars and lorries, right? Yes, we're going to be ramping up based on our experiences for buses and moving into the HGV space. We have more than 2,000 lorries, the small range from 3.5 to 7-ton range, that are operating every day in China. And with our range of products, we hope that we can increase the power of the fuel cell. We launched a new product, a 100 kilowatt product last week, and then we hope to push into the 200 and 300 kilowatt space. This will increase the energy density of the fuel cell itself. That means that it can go where the engine block would have been, so under the bonnet of the car or lorry where the engine would have been. We can also increase the operational temperature of the fuel cell. Efficiency will be about 55% at some temperatures, which means that we need to find a way to evacuate the temperature, the operating temperature of the fuel cell, and by doing that we can reduce the size of the radiator that's necessary. So all of this is working in the direction of getting higher power, smaller, higher operating temperature fuel cells that are also durable, that can run for 25 or 30,000 hours without having to replace the core of the fuel cell, and doing all of this whilst reducing costs. These are all of the types of challenges that we're working on today alongside our partners so that we can provide an offering for HGVs. And there are solutions for operators in the HGV space, and we hope that we can help them achieve what they want to achieve and also reduce the TCO gap that we mentioned earlier. Yes, we have seen all of the different characteristics. We've got KPO. Maybe let's hear a word from the people making the fuel cells, Symbio as well. It seems that for lorries, you need something that you can sell because the demand's there. Yes, lorries are key and strategic for us. We have an industry that's currently taking shape with an offering through integrators and also a direct OEM offering as well. We have product challenges, as Nicolas mentioned. We need more density, more capacity, better performance. This is true for the power, because we've got fuel cells up to 200 kilowatts, and those are being put into production right now. So available power, but also cooling that becomes an issue. This is true for the fuel cell itself and also for the energy storage. Lorries are a great forerunner for mass production for light vehicles. And we've also got investment paradigms and other things that are still very challenging and that we can look at too. So for the time being, we're looking at lorries, and we're launching products that perfectly match the lorry market at the moment, and we are with BO and H2O as well for storage and fuel cell technology. Philippe. Yes, for Symbio, it's pretty much the same. We're running the race. If you look at light utility vehicles or buses, things are being deployed in relatively large runs, but they are industrialized runs. For lorries, as Bart said, I think we're still in a prototyping phase for all of the reasons that I just mentioned. The product needs to be reliable and at a high enough capacity for lorries' needs. You can see the booths outside. Just imagine 2 of those under a lorry. We do believe this will be achievable, and we're looking at 2025-26. Jean-Claude Bailly for Gossin. So we've seen the logistics, but we also have airports and ports. One of the issues here is that these places need to be carbon neutral. Well, it's not so much of an issue, but an opportunity, in fact, I'd have to say. But I would like to come back to lorries as well, because we've worked a lot on closed sites, but we are also looking at on-road vehicles too. We're working on some shared products with a number of players, and as it's been said, the technology is there. The solutions are there. So we need to implement the right infrastructure where it's required fast. And where there's immediate demand, we have logistic sites, closed sites such as ports, airports. And that demand is there right now, not 2025, 2026. This is why we have been working on our vehicles for closed sites, and why we've been working on developing things for ports that are also available with hydrogen. So quite simply, these vehicles, such as this one, which is a hydrogen vehicle, is available right now. We need to work alongside our partners to immediately create ecosystems. And we're not talking about ecosystems in the near future. We're talking about ecosystems that can be set up right now for these solutions, quite simply because there are enough vehicles, there's enough mobility requirements in ports, and the constraints are such that we can implement hydrogen. So for people who are partners as suppliers or technological partners, we need to say that we have the vehicles right now. We have no longer any demand for non-electric, non-hydrogen vehicles for logistics centers and ports, and we're starting to see it drop off in airports. So here we had a photo of a vehicle at a port, but you've also got some on-road vehicles. This was based on customer demand and on the fact that we've been working for the last 10 years or so on electric and hydrogen solutions. We've developed a platform that was launched on the 27th of April of last year. This is a platform that we're calling the Skateboard. It's a modular lorry platform for electric or hydrogen, for all types of lorries. Here we have a picture. This is part of an MOU that we signed for proof of concepts for 2022. In 2022 in Belfort, we are going to be setting up a proof of concept with a driverless container lorry, hydrogen fueled. Things are coming. Now, of course, we still need to get some specific authorization, seeing as this is driverless. And maybe as a little teaser for you, on the 8th of November of this year, we'd like to see all of you, because we are going to be presenting the very first hydrogen lorry. This is a racing lorry. So for the Paris-Dakar and for other races. And it will be a true working model. And we're also going to be announcing our lorry range then. Okay, this brings us to the end of our lorry segment. We have from Italy, Vincenzo, who is here for Punch Hydrocell, Vincenzo Verdino.
Oh, can you hear
Hello,
us?
Vincenzo, can you hear us?
Hello, Laurent. Yes,
Hey.
I do perfectly hear you.
Yes, I wanted you to join the conversation because we mentioned the fuel cell since the beginning, but there is another way to put hydrogen in engines, in thermal engines, and this is what you're working on, and you think it's a big opportunity to start right now.
Yes, actually, we are not only working on the hydrogen combustion engines. We are still also working on the fuel cells and the hydrogen power and storage and distribution. So we are working on the three pillars, and we are working as well on the control and software development to manage all the other three pillars. With respect to the combustion engines, although it seems to be maybe now a very old word, the combustions, diesel and whatsoever, we believe this could be a transitional way to move to the future of full electric and full fuel cells, of course. The reason why we are doing that is because overall in Italy we are catching up for the hydrogen development. We are not yet there as France and Germany are, so we need to decarbonize pretty fast, and we need the infrastructure, of course, but we need also to build up the demand. And we think one way would be to convert very quick combustion engine, diesel and methane as well, to hydrogen, which will be almost zero, if not zero emissions. It will be also a way to support, let me say, the fleet owners and everyone which has not recovered the tooling investment for their machines and vehicles, and therefore they cannot jump into the electrical ones. And so we will also take care of the social impact and the supply chain. So we will have the supply chain along with us to move and transitions to the new supply chains for the electrical and the fuel cell. And we believe we are capable because we have developed one of the best diesels which are in the world. So we have all the capability and the knowledge to develop a modern hydrogen combustion engine. So if you think maybe 20 years ago, BMW, they converted some engines, but really we are thinking of a very modern new hydrogen. So
thank you.
Material, combustion.
Excuse me, Vinzo, just 1 second because time is running and we have to carry on. Une réaction très rapide de la part de Renault, enfin Avia et puis peut-être.
So very quickly from Avia and maybe Stellantis, this alternate solution, a combustion engine with hydrogen, what do you think? So what we're doing is fuel cells, really. That being said, Renault also has an eye on these kind of solutions. And how about Dominique Sadoun, our engine expert?
Wow. Stellantis also keeps its eye on the situation. An ICE means 30% torque, 30% heat, 30% in exhaust, and 30% loss in water. Over the past 10 to 15 years, we have invested billions into machining and reducing several grams of CO2 for every single exhaust. So there's really no comparison in terms of the energy yields of both systems. This being said, it's all about transition, isn't it? If you have vehicles that are already electric or have been electrified, the fuel cell is the right choice. If you start with an ICE, it might be easier if you haven't electrified it yet to use hydrogen in the engine. So we're going to talk about trains and boats and planes, but because of time constraint, let's start with planes. We have the project manager for hydrogen at ADP, Blondine. Can you hear us? We had a few problems trying to connect you via Zoom. Blondine, can you hear us? Maybe not. Okay, let me send a text. Doing this live. Isn't this fun? You know, when you serve as a moderator for a conference this size, you need to be a jack of all trades. So I need to be able to text and talk at the same time. Anywho, let's start with trains instead of planes. Let's hear from Stéphane. Hydrogen-powered trains are a major source of pride in France, even though it all started in Germany. I'd like to remind you that you're the director of the Green Smart Mobility Program at Alstom. It all began in 2018 in Germany, didn't it? Good morning, everybody, says Stéphane Caba. We're very proud to be part of this forum for two different reasons. First of all, we believe in hydrogen. Hydrogen is a strategic pillar of our strategy. And also, this is Belfort. And Belfort is the iconic birthplace of railway lines for Alstom, for France, and also for the rest of the world. You got to remember that close by, all of the high-speed train engines, they've all been designed and manufactured here. So whether for passenger transport or cargo. So we're very proud to be part of this forum, and I hope this is a very encouraging sign, an encouraging signal we're sending. We're showing that rail is a strategic element of decarbonization policies at EU level. Thierry talked about that at great length this morning, so the EU is strongly determined to advance this agenda, and needless to say, France is also determined to make inroads in the zero emission or so-called green mobility program. So we're all in a hurry. I understand. Let's try and hear from Blondine. Can you hear us? Oh, yes, we can hear you. Apologize. I apologize, Stéphane. We'll get back on the train in a minute. Let's first turn to planes. Blondine, you represent ADP. So hydrogen-powered planes may not be just around the corner. We're talking 2035, and ADP is starting to build the right ecosystem. It may not happen overnight, but you need to plan ahead, plan the entire infrastructure for using hydrogen as a source of power for planes. You're absolutely right. 2035 may sound like it's not around the corner, but it is. So you're thinking the Airbus hydrogen, liquid hydrogen powered plane, but before 2035, hydrogen will also make an appearance in air transport, in aviation. In other forms besides liquid hydrogen, there are two other ways in which we can use hydrogen. In aviation, first of all, planes can also fly using SAF, sustainable aviation fuels. And part of these SAFs will be synthetic ones, synthetic fuels. that will be produced using hydrogen. And that's not 2035. It'll happen as early as next year, 2022. So hydrogen will be used to make SAFs, sustainable aviation fuels, in France. And we have smaller airplane modules, smaller than Airbus, that are currently being worked on by the different plane makers. And they will use gaseous hydrogen fuel cells as a source of energy. So liquid hydrogen is just one of the ways in which we can use hydrogen to power planes. And also in Belfort, we have hydrogen planes, hydrogen-based planes that are currently being worked on. So there's a rather successful project that you want to talk to us about. Yes, you're absolutely right. In preparation for this plane, we're working at a local and regional level. We're developing an ecosystem. In particular, we're developing mobility solutions. And what do we try to do? It's a call for interest. And we try to identify and qualify innovative projects, breakthrough projects that will make a future contribution to developing a hydrogen ecosystem that is suitable for airport requirements and the specific needs and requirements of an airport. So we have received 124 candidacies at the global level. Of course, there are lots of European candidates, so 124 candidacies in particular. So how do you operate hydrogen? How do you use hydrogen in aviation? That's the question. Okay, so the clock is ticking, but it's nice to see a lot of things are happening in airports. EKPO is working with Airbus, isn't it? You're absolutely right. I don't know whether some of you had an opportunity to hear Glenn Llewellyn's presentation yesterday. EKPO has a JV with Airbus, a JV designed to develop fuel cells, the fuel cells that will power planes in future. So we're talking 2035 regarding commissioning those planes. Now, Mr. Llewellyn just yesterday announced that as early as 2025, Airbus planes will fly and they will be powered by fuel cells in particular. So from a technology point of view, this is an incredible challenge, and we don't have a whole lot of time. Now, getting back to Alstom, we talked about German trains. Getting back to Stefan Cabo, let me show you the Coradia Eland, and it's blue, isn't it? Yes. Okay, let's get back down to earth. Let's get back on track. Pun intended. This train was commissioned in 2018. This is a plane being operated in Germany. So it all started in 2012, 2013. We received support from the German government, particularly the Lower Saxony land, and we decided to put our heads together and come up with a solution. So what are we talking about? What do you see on screen? This is a train that is part of the Coradia range. So these are regional trains developed and promoted by Alstom. And this train was sold en masse to the German network. So the initial configuration was diesel-based. So the goal of this type of train is to have sufficient capacity and to be able to run on tracks where there are no overhead electrical systems. So diesel is highly polluting, unfortunately. And remember what Greta said? The house is on fire, so we need to respond. And we decided to transform this solution into a clean one, a zero-emission, a zero-carbon solution. So hydrogen is being used on this train. All we did was remove the diesel equipment. We removed the diesel engine and replaced it with a hydrogen motor. So how does it work? Well, it's basically a fuel cell. And we talked about this with our partners and our associates. We have a long-standing partnership agreement with Hydronics. And hydrogen is fueled into the fuel cell, and that is stored on board the train. And the hydrogen can retransform via the fuel cell into electrical power, and therefore, through the batteries, can fuel the engines that help operate the train. So it's all about upskilling. You bought a French fuel cell maker and you're looking for partnership agreements. You have no fewer than 3 manufacturers here that are part of this panel. So thank you all for being here. Yes, we need to remember the fundamentals. When it comes to hydrogen, you can't work in compartmentalized fashion. We need to work together as a team. And we decided to do that, work together collectively, because we need to promote solutions that are compatible with what we want to do in rail. I'd like to remind you that there are specific prescriptions when it comes to rail. A train has a lifespan of 40 years. You need to bear that in mind in the economic equation, in the ecosystem, in the technical requirements. So a car is not going to last you 40 years, but a train will. Meanwhile, we believe there are important components that we inject, that we insert into trains that can be pooled and that can come from development efforts that are also being contemplated in other areas of industry. Stacking, for example. Stacking is the first component, an important component of fuel cells. And from a technology point of view, it determines the performance of the fuel cell. And also, it's important in terms of the economic equation. So we need collaboration with fuel cell makers, stacking players with sufficient volumes so that we can stand apart from the competition from a technology perspective and also reduce cost of acquisition as well as reduce TCO, total cost of ownership, over 40 years. Nicolas Pocard from Ballard. We're partners with another project called Siemens, right? Yes, for a number of years now, we have worked with their hydrogen-powered Miro train in Bavaria. We jointly developed a specific module, so 200 kilowatt integrated into the Miro train, which was designed with hydrogen in mind from the get-go. So the train will begin testing in 2022, 2023. In Bavaria. So what's important is that rail mobility is being fast-tracked. In addition to this project with Siemens, that are light rail trains that use fuel cells in China were commissioned 3 years ago, and also in terms of rail cargo. So not just passenger transport, but also cargo transport. There is growing interest in looking at fuel cells and how this can be used for powering engines. Several months ago, we signed an important project with CP Rail. So 1.2 megawatt, that's the power of that fuel cell. So these are 200 kilowatt modules, and 6 of these modules have been integrated into the engine of that cargo train. So in addition to regional transport, which is all the rage in Europe at the moment, we're also looking at cargo transport at a global level, and we're looking at how we can use fuel cells for that purpose. So fuel cells, but also tanks. Plastic Omnium struck an agreement with Alstom, right? Yes, but we're very proud of that. This is a perfect example of what Stefan was saying earlier. Plastic Omnium built a system that revolves around a standardized or approved tech for road applications, and it'll be manufactured in Belgium. And we are using this foundation to provide a system that is both tested and competitive. Yes, I'd like to reiterate our interest in collaborating with players such as Plastic Omnium. What you need to look at is range, or so-called autonomy, the range of a train. This is what players want, not just for regional transport, but also in terms of cargo transport. We also believe in heavy-duty cargo applications. And we believe we need to develop solutions to provide the same level of performance, at least the same level of performance as diesel solutions today. So tanks are key, and pressure, hydrogen pressure is key. And also liquid hydrogen. We could embrace that solution ultimately so as to improve the range of the solution and have high performance solutions. Indeed, that's something that we want to explore further as part of partnership agreements, like the contract we recently signed. Deux commentaires très rapidement. Bart Bibek,
Because there's been a study led by FEHU and Shift to Rail. So, what do you think of the deployment of H2 trains in Europe? Very quick as possible. Thank you.
Well, I think it's ongoing, huh? And next to the examples that were given by the speakers, there's also this hybrid version is possible, and we are doing one in Spain where basically we have a normal electric train using the catenary, but then also for the last mile we see fuel cells coming in. So business case is there. It's about scaling up deployment. That's for me, it's for trains. On aviation, maybe I just want to make, on aviation, there is a huge challenge still ahead of us, and it's good that Airbus is really pushing for aviation, and we are aiming to build a first demonstrator by 2028 to an Airbus plane propelled by liquid hydrogen fuel cells, and maybe also one with combustion engine.
Thank you. Bart, I would like now to talk to Stefan Herbst. Stefan, if you're still there. So first, of course, you're looking at train market, but also ships, because fuel cells from Toyota could be applied in boats in the future.
Yes, indeed. So we have there two corporations. One is with the Energy Observer Development in France to develop range extender modules for yachts, and with Corvus in Norway to work on ferries and larger maritime applications. And just to mention also, we work with CAF in Spain. There's a research project supported by the joint undertaking to develop hydrogen trains. Very briefly.
Okay, thank you, Stéphane. Un petit mot rapide de Jean-Claude Bailly, puisque donc Gossin.
Quickly, Jean-Claude Bailly, talk to us about Gossin. You started with logistics, and not long ago you were in Monaco. Are you going to start working on hydrogen-powered rockets in the future? Yeah, we did look into this market last week. Our guiding threat is our ability to use hydrogen-powered systems for heavy-duty mobility solutions. And there's huge demand in shipping. We know that boats are highly polluting, and we've received a lot of requests. We have concrete projects that may see light of day very soon. But it's all about the ecosystem, isn't it? That's the challenge. Can we ensure hydrogen refueling irrespective of the circumstances? Well, as we always do, it is in our interest to talk to all of the potential partners that we can to fast-track this transition, because we need to meet the existing demand. We're almost at the end of the conference. Nicolas Potard from Ballard, tell us more about boats and ships. This is an interesting challenge which emerged several years ago. Particularly in Europe, we're seeing the emergence of a number of projects. We at Ballard are working on 6 boat projects, such as barges or ferries. We have dedicated the shipping offering. We're working together with Seawave, and we adapted our expertise in heavy-duty mobility for shipping purposes. But obviously, there are specific challenges in terms of certification. We're working with certification organizations so that the fuel cells will be suitable for the maritime environment and will meet the necessary safety and security requirements. So we're seeing growing demand from operators, builders, shipyards. They come to us and ask for solutions for barges, ferries, coastal navigation, and eventually hydrogen-powered oceanic shipping.
And she's working for Inos Global Company. And Ulrike, you're going to mention an initiative called Heavy, and it's in order to facilitate refueling for very heavy mobility. Ulrike, if you can hear us, can you please explain in a few words what it's all about?
Sure. Well, hi Laurent, bonjour à tous et à toutes, but I think I'll do it in English. You might be able to follow me a lot better if I explain the initiative in English. Inos, well, we're a bunch of crazy people excited about technology-based innovation. Fair enough, that's one thing. You might know us a little better because we are managing a global industry association called Charging Interface Initiative. And I want to take you back a couple of years because we feel that the momentum that we faced 5 years ago is now there with hydrogen. Charin, which is the short version of this association, was founded by Volkswagen and BMW with the overall aim of swiftly rolling out the electromobility infrastructure by really standardizing the interface between infrastructure and vehicle. And what do? Of course, standardization processes are pretty slow. So you really need to collect the requirements beforehand. You need to align the industries along the entire value chain beforehand, before you go into the standardization process. So that was the idea with Charin 5 years ago, and we started with 10 founding members, and really, it's a success story. By now, we have 250 members. We have all the top OEMs. We have the infrastructure sides. We have the component providers. We have the energy providers. And this is where Heavy comes in. In the beginning of this year, stakeholders from the Charin community, they approached us and said, well, look, we have the legal framework, we know the organizational structure well of Charin. This could be a blueprint for the hydrogen sector, the way we work in the working groups, the way we align ourselves. Why don't we offer this to the community in the hydrogen business? And of course, the Charin stakeholders, they have stakes in the hydrogen sector as well. And basically, they pushed us to go forward. And this is where we are now, basically. So we have a lot of verbal commitment to get together, just like Mr. Huber already said. We need the cross-industry alignment on global scale to really work on the communication protocol. And of course, if you think about the exchange of physical parameters, then an ISO 11558 might be a little over-engineered at this stage, but if you think about all the added value services, the future functionalities that you'll need, I mean, we are talking in China about grid integration, automated charging, etc., etc. And especially, for example, in the US, if you think about the critical infrastructure that you get with all the data exchange, within China, it took no time to set up a working group on cybersecurity, because this is an issue the association is dealing with right now. So it was mentioned before, speed is of essence here. And we also have partners, especially in Asia, it was mentioned before, in China, South Korea, Japan, and all the signatories of LOEs for Heavy, they're actually from Asia. So I think the hydrogen business is to some extent decided in Asia already. And this is our offer, basically, to take the success story from Charin, transfer it, and the decisive elements transfer it to Heavy. And I guess, Laurent, you'll ask, well, where are you with Heavy? We have a lot of verbal commitment. We had the kickoff event in June with a good number of stakeholders, but you know just better than I do that the way from the verbal commitment to the financial commitment takes some time, but we're pretty optimistic that we're going to found the association in the beginning of next year, end of this year. So yes, if you're interested to join Heavy, then I'd be happy to have a bilateral call. I'm happy to answer questions regarding setup, organizational structure, membership conditions straight away as well.
Okay, thank you, Ulrike, and we, of course, we'll have a look at this. On termine cette conférence.
Let's wrap up this conversation with a few words from Jean-Baptiste. we talked about these systems that can work in a variety of different areas, shipping, cars, etc., etc. So an energy player such as yourself has a card to play here. So rail, road, obviously, and shipping, clearly this is a priority for Total Energy. Obviously, H2 is the right solution, but there are two main challenges. As we said before, there are no H2 filling stations across Europe. So you need 700 bar. That's the standard in terms of pressure for long-haul trips. I'm not going to get into details here, but we need to develop a multimodal transport for the future. And also refueling stations and storing the necessary volumes. Today, according to the estimates, we refill every 400 or 500 kilometers, and it takes 20 minutes. It's a good starting point, but obviously this protocol needs to be properly developed, and this is why we have a joint partnership. We need to reduce the refueling time by at least 50%, and this is why we have a partnership with a bunch of different players, Symbio, etc. So we compete with each other, obviously, but we also cooperate with each other. And I think it's important for road rail transport. Now, in terms of rail, we're talking 350 bars as the usual pressure. But we're also talking 200 kilo. That's the size of stations in Germany today. That's the equivalent of 5 trucks being refueled, or a fleet of 600 light utility vehicles. These are large volumes that we need to manage, particularly in terms of storage. So we're talking several trains, obviously, at least we hope so, for Alstom's sake. And as far as planes are concerned, liquid hydrogen is key. That's one relevant storage solution to increase density. Now, it makes sense for aviation because energy consumption is high and frequency is high as well, every single day. And what about evaporation and boil off? These are two challenges that you know when it comes to liquefied natural gas, because it's 100 degrees hotter. So there are fewer heat sources, obviously. So boil off is a problem that we have with LNG, and the tanks are sized to hold 5 days. So I know it's tragic for climate change, but in terms of hydrogen, the main problem in case of leakage is that hydrogen is highly flammable, whether pure or blended. So we need to be pragmatic in terms of using hydrogen for mobility purposes. And this is true for heavy-duty transport in particular. We also need to be pragmatic in terms of liquid hydrogen. And we need to only focus on the most relevant uses. I'll try to be quick here. Thank you for this perfect conclusion, and thank you very much to all panel members for actively taking part in this conversation. So many different hydrogen solutions, and we also need the right infrastructure. Congratulations, everyone. Make some noise for our live participants and also our remote attendees. Enjoy lunch.